Thank you. You know, I really love technology. Sometimes it doesn't work. Most of the time it's a user error, you don't plug it in. But in general, I love technology, and we're in Silicon Valley, so I'm assuming everybody here is technology experts. Yeah. Okay, actually you are. Do you have a smartphone or smart device? Yes. There are as many as people are in the world, around 7 billion. Do you use Facebook? Yes. Yeah, if we measured Facebook users as a country, it would be the 3rd largest in the world. Are you on LinkedIn? Yes. 2 people join LinkedIn every second. Have you ever taken a selfie? 93 million selfies are taken per day on an Android. So actually, you may not think that you're technical, but you are. It's just sort of seeped into your life and crept in, and you started using it unknowingly. And that's what this talk is about today. It's about how technology is really changing society, work, education, careers. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. When I was at Stanford, I actually pulled together with the Futures Institute in Palo Alto a group of leaders from large companies, medium companies, small companies, healthcare, technology, entertainment, startups, you name it. We put them in a room around this size. We locked them in the room and said, what do you think the future of work and skills will look like in 2020 or later in a digital world? And that's what we did. And we came up with 10 forces and 10 skills. Now, I won't have time to go through all of them with you today. So whatever I miss, we can go over later. But really what we need to know as part of being trainers, employers, leaders, and employees. So let me go through a few. Number 1, extreme longevity. You're living to 100. You might be looking at me going, And you may have read in National Geographic that a baby born today will live to 120. Mind-boggling, isn't it? Right? So I went out to 200 leaders and said, what does it mean to you if you're living to 100? And they said, well, Tracy, if I'm living to 100, that means I'm going to have to afford to live to 100. And if I'm going to have to afford to live to 100, that means I'm going to have to work until I'm 80. 80? I've been working since I've been 20. Oh my God, that means I have to work 50 or 60 years to live to 100 and afford to live to 100, which means I have to stay healthy enough, educated enough, technical enough, and skilled enough. Mind-boggling, isn't it? Well, let's look at the flip side. The executives in the room, the managers in the room said, wait a minute, this is playing out in the workforce already. We have 3 generations in the workforce. He said, no, wait a minute. McDonald's said, I've got 4 generations in the workforce. And then Walmart said, I've got 5 generations in the workforce. My oldest employee is 102. Right? So think about the issues that brings up. Right? Different expectations, generational goals, different interests. The way we get motivated varies quite a bit. And even more importantly, the technology use varies a lot by generation. Some people love it, right? Some people won't touch it, won't use it, don't understand it, and resist it. Some people are interested in it, but a little confused by it. Right? So extreme longevity is a force that we're dealing with individually and also in our companies. Oops, let me just turn back. So it made me think of, now I watch YouTube. I know you watch YouTube, don't you? You love YouTube. Okay, you're gonna love this video. Okay, I found this on YouTube and I said, this is something to share. So let's just take a look. So technology, generational differences. She gives her dad an iPad and he thinks it's a cutting board. So we live in a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I was told it's an Army term of what a soldier feels every day out in the battlefield. You just don't know what's going to happen in their life. That's what our managers, that's what our startups, that's what our executives said is today running a business. You never know when there's going to be a natural disaster, typhoon wiping out a factory. You never know when there's going to be a terrorist attack, right? Wiping out a marathon or people. You never know when there's going to be this little bitty startup coming out of nowhere, like Netflix, Uber, Bitcoin, that's going to eat your lunch, right? And take away pieces of your business. That's what executives said it's like to be working today. We are leading in a VUCA world, which means we need employees who can take that leadership responsibility. Can we groom employees, right, to lead in a VUCA world? Second force. Next force I combine together. Globally connected world and flat world labor. I call it from eBay to Elance. eBay, as many know, is a marketplace. You can go out, set up a storefront, right, take international currency in about an hour or less. So a business can be global just like that, right, because of technology. Elance, very interesting. It's also a marketplace. It's a marketplace of labor, and I actually use it because I can find people who can help me with my videos, can help me with text, statistics, crunching data, editing for me for about $2 an hour. $2 an hour. The world has gotten extremely competitive, right? We can be global on one side and grow instantly, but on the other side, it's extremely competitive. I, as an individual, need to think about how do I keep myself marketable now in a volatile and complex world. eBay to Elance. So then we said, well, how is technology actually changing work? I said, first you got to remember that a lot of us may have come from the classical world. I certainly did. A high school degree or a liberal arts degree was just enough for any job, right? You put on a suit and you could work anywhere. Now our kids, our employees, are living in a technology-based world. So it's a little different. Let me just take something simple. Just think about the car. In our world, my classical world, when I grew up, cars had 4 wheels. I actually changed my own oil. Remember that? Now you get a text message, right? And cars actually took keys. You remember the key? Right? Now we have a fob. Right? So that's how simple a car was. Now just look at the variety of cars. We've got Nano, the cheap car, a very expensive car, the Bugatti, the Mini Cooper, which is actually customized out of robotics, right? You can just order it now. Electric cars, the energy sources are changing, natural gas and autonomous cars. So cars have actually gotten quite complex. In fact, many of us refer to them now as intelligent mobile devices on wheels, right? Because that's really what they are. It's just a lot of computer parts on wheels. But now let's think forward to the car. What's Google doing to the car now? It's saying it's pulling the hardware out of the car, taking the pedals out, taking the steering wheel out. What are they putting in? Software. So cars, in essence, are going to become autonomous software in a box. So we're shifting in this computational world into a software world. Cars. Well, let's think about that. What happens to training or something like auto repair now that we have these complex cars? Well, here's a snippet from BMW on how they are training their car repair people. Now, I'll give you, explain the technology. We're going to see wearable technology, like a Google Glass-like device, with talking to someone, at the same time using augmented virtual reality vision, right? And I'll point it out as we go through the video. I mean, I worked in manufacturing for many years, and the way I learned is by someone was standing over my shoulder, right? But now I can actually be instructed and engaged in very engaging technology that I had never seen before. So then we talked a little bit about the future of work. And this is the point where I said to the group, do you really think, given all of these technology and forces, do you really think that firms tomorrow will look anything like a firm today? So let's just go back a little bit in history, right? When basically work was around the farm, Right? Where did we go? We went out to the farm. That's where work was. And then we became an industrial nation, and where was work? It was in the factory, and that's where we went to work. And then we became this knowledge economy, right? And, well, it became computers, and they're very expensive. So where did we go? We went to the QB farms, right? Because companies gave us computers. And now we're moving into the mobile world. So where do we go to work? Well, quite frankly, you look for a power source and a Wi-Fi spot. That's about it. That's how the nature of work is. So really, will firms look like they do today anymore as we quickly shift into a much more mobile, right? Maybe we'll even become more like agents. If you look at some of the statistics, 1 out of 3 people now in the US actually work part-time or contract. Will we become agents vying for opportunities? And you know, it's interesting because they had the entertainment group, right? The firms from the entertainment industry in the room. And they said, you know, it could end up being very much like we make a movie. Let me tell you how we make a movie. We look for talent, and the best talent, the A-list, right, gets picked, and they get the highest salary. And the best director, and the best videographer, and the best producer. That's how we make our movies. And we swarm together to make the product, and then we release when we're done. And if you're good, you'll get the pay, you'll get the opportunity. If you're not, maybe you'll get a C video or a C movie. Very interesting. Are we moving into an agent society? So we talked about some of the skills. We came up with 10, as I mentioned. I can't go through them all, but here's a couple. I don't want to scare you, but are these survival skills that we need to add to our portfolio in addition to the great skills that we had in the classical world of problem solving, right? And being in literacy, and all of these skills don't go away. These are extra skills to think about. Number 1 is design mindset. I want you to think about your own work, right, or your own environments, because this is quite interesting. Design mindset is the skill is, think about your nature of work and what you're producing, a service, a product, an entertainment movie. How do we design the workforce to be the most productive for our product or service? So let me give you an example. Here in Silicon Valley, you might be noticing Facebook, Google, HP, right? A lot of these firms are creating, Apple, of course, the mega campuses, environments where their key employees, engineers, can come together and collaborate in real time because they feel that engineers should be collaborating in great environments. So you might have free food, right, and volleyball courts and a lot of the amenities. I think even Facebook is building dorms now. But then you had other companies in the room, like Cisco and Price Waterhouse and Ernst & Young and Accenture, and they said, you know, our nature of work is really consulting. And what we want are professional services. And what we want is our employees to be out of the environment of the office. We want them to be near our customers, our clients. So we would actually want them to be distributed, not centralized on a campus, but distributed, and we'll connect them using technology, where they're much more productive if they're not centralized. But then we had healthcare in the room, and they said, you know what? Our business is patient care. And so when we think about how to design the workplace, for us, it's all about the patient experience, the colors. Should we be adding in more couches like Starbucks, make it comfortable, right, not disconcerting? Should we be putting beds in the room with our sick kids so that mom and dad could stay overnight? Are we designing our environment for the patient care? And then, of course, our startup folks, this is actually Ace Hotel lobby in New York, said we just need to be collaborating in spaces. We're starting up businesses, we need our devices. We don't really need offices at all. So the best design for us is just give us some free Wi-Fi and a nice environment with other warm bodies, and that makes sense for us. Design mindset. How do you design your employees and the workforce, right, to be the most productive? Skill number 2. Multimedia is the new text, new media literacy. 65, some people say 75% of us are visual. Yet many of us still want to communicate, train, deliver our materials in text, right? So let me give you an example. I was over in Amsterdam a couple of months ago, and people were running downtown, running. And I said, what are you running for? And they said, oh, there's a store opening, right? That's exactly what I said. Who cares? A store opening. And they go, no. You have not seen a store opening like this. Come down and watch. Of course I had to go in the store. I don't go into H&M, but I had to go into that store after that kind of engaging experience. It was like no store opening that I had ever experienced before. Now just think about that. Multimedia is the new text. It's a skill. How can you start to add more engaging technology to whatever industry you're in? Okay, sense making. I call sense making uber critical thinking, right? How do I make sense of in a very data enriched world? So let me give you an example. I shop at Nordstrom sometimes. People know Nordstrom's retail store. I got a call last July. It was a little weird kind of call. It's like, hi, Tracy, this is Nordstrom customer service. How are you? Well, I'm fine. We miss you. Yeah. I said, you miss me? They said, yeah, we miss you. I said, how could you miss me if you don't even know me? They said, oh, Tracy, we know you. We've known you now for about 3 years. And I said, oh, how do you do that? And they go, well, we've been collecting data on you, and we kind of know what stores you shop in. We know what departments you shop in. We know what labels you buy, and we even think we know your favorite salesperson. There you go. And I said, oh, my God. And they go, but we miss you. We miss you because you shop here during the big sales, which are December and August. Everybody would know that. And you didn't come in last December. So now it's July, and our big sales are coming up, and we want to make sure that you're coming in. So we're going to have a nice gift certificate, $100, waiting for you in the store, right up here in Palo Alto with your favorite, we think, salesperson, because we want to make sure that you come back. We thought maybe you're a traveling person from the clothes you wear. Maybe it was the holidays, why you didn't come in. God forbid you went shopping at that new Bloomingdale's or Neiman's. We want you here. Sense making, what do they do, right? So, of course, as soon as I get off the phone, what do? You call HR. HR, Nordstrom, why are you guys doing this? They said, oh, Tracy, we're in a data-enriched world. We've been collecting data. We need to know how to make sense of the data. And so we sort of brought in some data scientists to help us understand how to get to know our customers better. Maybe because we want to get closer to them, right? Establish better relationships, maybe streamline our products, and help us increase our sales. Sense making, the skill of making sense in the data-enriched world. Computational thinking. This I would kind of describe as, can we somehow work with computers in a digital age, right? Let me give you an example. So at our think tank, we had the Watson group from IBM from Almaden Valley, right? You remember Watson, you played Jeopardy. And more recently, last month, I went out and actually revisited Watson because they moved to New York. And they said, Tracy, Watson is sort of like an experiment that went to an expert on your team. So let me explain. Watson was a supercomputer, right? An artificial intelligence. And just imagining filling up your computer with every answer and question that you could possibly think of in Jeopardy. And that's all they did, is saying, I wonder if we can make this computer so smart it could win in Jeopardy every time it played. And then it got on TV, and it played lots of contestants, and Watson won over and over and over again. They said, Tracy, that was the experiment. We actually didn't think we could pull it off, but we did. But then we had to sit back and say, now how is that going to help humanity? How are we going to make, right, Watson or use the computational thinking, think like the computer, and advance society? So what did they do? They took data around cancer. They took prescriptions, controversial types of solutions, symptoms, right? Anything they could find about cancer and said, you know, could we teach Watson to be that smart that Watson could cure cancer 10 years before humans could even get there? And they didn't stop with that. They took Watson on the road. They took Watson to the Cleveland Clinic to become a physician assistant for writing prescriptions. Why should a physician have to memorize all of the prescriptions? Why not have Watson do that and actually maybe even self-think better solutions? And then they kept going, and Watson ended up in New York City, and that's where it is now, as an incubator, saying to people, bring in your data, bring in your enormous data sets, and together let's solve next generation problems. Computational thinking is a skill. Can we start to compete using the machines, right, or technology together to solve larger problems rather than competing against? Cross-cultural competency. Cross-cultural competency is an interesting skill because I had been traveling for many, many years. I worked at Apple, HP, Cisco, and I would have to commute back and forth, I remember, on a regular basis to Asia. And cross-cultural competency at that time meant teaching us a few phrases, in my case in Japanese, right, showing us a menu, and then teaching us maybe a little protocol, and that was it, right? Then you got the boot, and you were off and running and traveling a lot. And I remember getting to Japan on that first trip going, oh my God, this is a whole different world. I don't really understand this culture well enough to do really meaningful business here. I need to develop that competency. Well, on the flight home, it was interesting. This is years ago. This movie was playing. It's a little scene I'd like to share with you from it, which might make you laugh, but it certainly was my experience at the time. Let's take a look. Hand in hand with that was another skill on virtual collaboration. And virtual collaboration has actually somewhat changed too. When you think about it today, you might be thinking about GoToMeeting, you might be thinking about WebEx, you might be thinking about Skyping someone. But virtual collaboration has actually even got much more immersive. So let me give you an example of, this is a virtual autopsy. So this is actually augmented virtual reality combined with virtual collaboration. That you still need to know anatomy, right? You still need to understand the body, right? So if you're thinking that you're, as a coroner, life is going to be like Ducky on NCIS, it's just not going to be that way anymore. But in addition to having that kind of expertise and skills, what you also need to now is extrapolate it, right, virtually. How can I use the visualization software? How can I collaborate with other people who may not be or may be in the same room? So it's really taking meeting place or WebEx to the next level. Virtual collaboration in a digital world. Novel and adaptive thinking. This is a very interesting skill. And here's how I want you to think about it. Two ways. One, is there a trend happening anywhere in another industry that you could borrow, kind of twist it, and resolve a problem that you're already solving? Or is there a new technology that didn't exist before that you could use to solve a problem that you're already solving in a unique and better way, right? So let me just give you an example. There's a biology physician who does reconstructive surgery, right? So he's looking at 3D printing, right? People know 3D printing. If you don't know 3D printing, just imagine taking your printer that has ink, replacing it with plastic or liquid metal, giving it instructions, and letting it print something. Fantastic in manufacturing, right? A new way of making prototypes. But people are using it to make toys. People are using it to make icing on wedding cakes. So here's a physician looking at this 3D printing saying, I wonder if I could take human cells, liquefy them, pour them into my printer, and redo a problem I'm already solving. I'm doing reconstructive ears, but maybe I could do it even better. Can you take a trend or a technology, pull it into your world, and resolve a problem that you might already be solving in a unique or better or different way, right? Very interesting skill set. Okay, let me just go back here. The last skill we actually came up with was what we felt is the most important skill. A T person. Just think of transdisciplinarity, T person, breadth, depth, and technology, right? Combine the three skills. I'll give you an example. I was actually in Africa a couple of months ago, and I met with a very large hospitality conglomerate. And they said, Tracy, you know, this T person is what we're looking for. Let me tell you why. We went through a phase where we needed to hire a lot of generalists, people who knew how to run or manage teams, run operations, right? Do basic strategy, right? Generalists of the firms. And they said we did fine. And then we kind of went through this phase where all of a sudden the whole world got specialized. And we started to need people who specialized in hospitality HR, in hospitality finance, in hospitality IT. So we brought in all of these specialists. Then they said the world got very technical. And all of a sudden, we had to go out and find technology people who could book online, figure out social media for hotels, right? Restaurant ordering and delivery, you know, on demand in your room. So we went out and got all these technologists to help us with the applications, right, in the implementation. And then they said, we're sitting here and our competitors are eating our lunch. And they said, because we need someone who can pull it together. That's the T person. The person who can do the generalist, right, the strategy, understand the specialty areas, and understand the technology well enough that we don't make a poor investment and can help us move ahead. And that's when the group in the room said, that's what every company actually needs today. Even startups. We need to be able to understand the general scope of the business, the specialized aspects of our business, and how technology impacts our business. The T person, transdisciplinarity, breadth and depth and technology. I'm going to spend just 1 or 2 minutes on future careers. This is a little bit unemployed for life, but because I met with so many people in HR and training. Couple little points. Careers have changed. Your career, my career, everyone's career is probably going to look a little bit more like Chutes and Ladders game. It's going to be a maze with twists and turns. You're going to be in work, out of work. You might be starting a business. You might be changing a location. Careers today look very different. You certainly will be very lucky if you stay in one company forever. You are one of the few. Number two is you would think, because we're going to be working for 50 or 60 years, which is over half our lives and a third of our days, you would think a lot of us spend a lot of time on career planning. So interesting enough, when I went out to look at the numbers and time where we spend our time, here's how much time we on average spend on career planning. About an hour and a half a year. Here's how much time we spend sleeping. Almost 2,800 hours a year. So basically, we'll do anything else but look at our careers. We'll eat and plan weddings and look for a house and anything but plan our careers. So I try to emphasize employees and students and ourselves. Career planning is going to become very important. It's also very different because life is so much more integrated. If that's one thing the millennials have certainly brought to our attention in the workforce is that life is integrated and that you can't compartmentalize it anymore. It isn't work and home, right? It's all together now. So planning actually has to be much more integrated as well. How am I going to work and live to 100, afford it, health, education, skills? And The simple idea that I give to people is, just as CEOs told me, when I asked them years ago, how did you do it? They said, Tracy, take that one piece of paper, scope out your life, right? 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s to 120. Scope out a couple of goals. One piece of paper, as soon as you write down that goal, right? Whether I want to get married, or I want to be a vice president, or I want to do a startup, it comes together faster. So start to look at your life as, what are you doing in your 20s, and how will that impact your 30s? What you're doing in your 40s, how will that impact what you'll be doing in your 80s? And start to make a couple of goals and targets. Okay, enough on career planning. I'm going to end with one final video. The reason I show this video is because someone sent it to me and told me more of the story around it, which I thought was very compelling, because it summed up many of the skills that we talked about. So I'll give you the background. It's called The Virtual Choir. It's out on YouTube. The story that was explained to me is that Eric Whitaker was a music teacher, conductor, composer. One of his students filmed herself on her mobile phone or her laptop singing a piece. And instead of waiting right till she saw him, she sent him the video file and said, what do you think? And he kind of looked at it and said, that's pretty clever, right? Let me take the video. Well, what can I do with this video, right? A little bit novel and adaptive thinking combined with multimedia literacy. What could I do with this video? Let me go out to the community using social media and say, see this song? Sing the same one. Sing it in your alto, tenor, basso. Sing it, send me your files, and let me put it together. And that's what he did. And he created a beautiful virtual choir. Well, now there's about 8 of them. I'm going to give you a snippet from number 5. What the music teacher told me is it transformed the way that she teaches her music class. Everybody in her class wants to be picked, because it's so competitive now, to be in that virtual choir. So she assigns it for homework. You get extra stars, right, if you get selected. And it's just a beautiful way of creating something that you have never seen, right, physical or think possible before. I want to thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it very much.